Okay, welcome. Tonight is May 19th. It's the Manhattan Community Board 1 Environmental Protection Committee meeting. I'm Alice Blank, Vice Chair of the Board, Chair of this committee, with Tammy Melton, Chair of our board as tech rep, and Wendy here as co-chair of our committee, and Wendy Chapman, and we're delighted she's here in person today. And welcome all. So tonight we're going to not waste too much time because we have a long presentation probably. And I'm going to kick it off to Jordan Salinger from the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice to speak about the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Update and the specific interest in talking about the Battery Park City piece of this. And we will be joined, and the battery rather, excuse me, the battery. And I think, Jordan, you're going to start it off.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Jordan Salinger, Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. This is a amended version of the LMCR quarterly. If you've been to these meetings before, you've seen one, in some ways. We were last here in April. I mentioned, we talked about the Seaport project and the FIDI Seaport efforts. Today, we are talking much more in that was kind of a concept of advancing early design. Today is much more focused on construction and some of the progress that I imagine you've been outside, walking, biking, you've probably seen some of it moving along. So with that, I think we can hop into the first few slides. I will do the quickest introductions I've ever done in the history of this meeting, because I know you have all seen these slides many times before.
You want to introduce the people before the slides?
Sure. I guess many teams here, I will allow most of them to do their own direct introductions, but we have teams representing the BMCR project, the Battery Coastal Project, and Battery Park City Authority projects. Again.
Yep, I'm Patrick Prime. I'm the senior project manager with Hunter Roberts Construction Group, and we're managing the Battery Coastal Resilience on behalf of the Department of Parks and NYC's. Ethan Smith, project manager, Hunter Roberts.
I'm Kathleen Chan with New York City EPC, and we're managing the battery resiliency project on behalf of the parks.
Steve Nelson, EPP, East Capital for the battery project. I'm Garrett from Gracely's office.
I'm Mitch Bordeaux, Battery Park City Authority.
Becky Beaver, Battery Park City Authority.
Dan Dixon, Battery Park City Authority.
And the gentleman in the back, please.
Hi, I'm Michael Ryan, Community Construction Liaison for Battery Park City.
Which resiliency project?
Northwest.
Okay, all right, so Jordan.
Let's just look at the first few slides for a moment. All right. So you can see where we are here. This shows you all the efforts underway in Lower Manhattan. Just briefly noting the two efforts to the north of us, East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, that is moving along at a healthy pace, not part of the LMCR effort, but a notable effort nonetheless. And then to the west, the Army Corps, their HATS study. This is a long-term regional planning effort that the Army Corps is advancing, not just for this area, although it includes portions of this geography, but for the broader region. So tonight we'll be talking about projects on the left side of your screen, and one on the right, the Battery Coastal Resilience. That is a $200 million effort. That is EDC on behalf of the Parks Department. Next set of projects, the Battery Park City Coastal Resilience projects, two efforts, South Project and Northwest, and ending tonight with a brief presentation from the BMCR team, $350 million project, combination of city capital and CDBG. You can see here the project timelines across the projects. As I noted before, tonight's update will be largely on the, first 3 or 4, that are further along, the Brooklyn Bridge, Coastal Resilience Project, which should be wrapping construction in 26. South Battery Park City, which is ending at the end of this year, and Battery Coastal Resilience Project in 26 as well. The other efforts, there'll be a presentation on the Northwest project, which was finishing design as construction out beyond towards 2030. And the other effort that we had a presentation on last month, the Seaport Coastal Resilience, has an estimated construction end date of 2029. FIDI Seaport Master Plan, a much longer planning effort that extends beyond this. And with that, I am handing off to the Battery Coastal Resilience team.
Hi, we're here for Battery Coastal Resilience.
Please join us at the table. So, no offense, but
Or you can stand up here. I always, if you're.
yeah.
Here.
And the remote control that you have. Amy.
Give it to you. So we are here for the Battery Coastal Resiliency Project. Here with Mike Roberts, and they will go through some more of our slides. But here we have some construction photos as well for you. So real quick, design has been complete since June 2023. We've put this project through the Envision program, and we've received Envision Platinum, which is our highest rating. That was in December of 2023. Phase 1 construction was January 2024, and is slated and anticipated to complete in July 2025. And then phase 2 is anticipated to start this August and maybe ending in August of 2026. And we'll be done.
Yeah, just wanted to run through an update on the construction. So I think since last time we were here, we've completed pile driving, we've completed our drainage infrastructure work in the park. And right now, our big focus is getting the superstructure done for the wharf with all the precast caps, beams, fascia panels, which we'll get some cool pictures of those with their integrated granite on them. And then pouring topping slab to tie all that together. Behind that, we have our lightweight fill program going on. Foundation work for all the salvaged granite to be installed in. And beginning soil planting, irrigation work. And I'll run through some pictures after this. Sorry. Again, I think this is a map we've been showing for probably about the last year since we've been coming here, just the status of the battery during the phase 1 of our project. It's showing everything that's open and kind of the area that we're taking as well as the adjacent project. Some photos. So next slide. So some photos from December. We're installing pile caps. On the left, on the right is a photo of us pouring the beams which tie the individual pile caps together, and we're going to start getting the superstructure coming together. This next photo is from the water and then looking down. So after those beams are poured, we are installing precast planks, which really start seeing the final deck of the wharf starting to come together. On the right here are those fascia panels we were talking about, and that's all, they come to site as one integral unit with the precast for the structure, but also the granite, which is being done to kind of mimic what was existing at the back before we started our cell demolition. So this is some of our work over along Pier A, highlighting the lightweight fill program. So on the left here is that foam glass aggregate, which I think Ethan brought some samples of. It was that lightweight glass material. So that's creating our base layer. And then on top of that, we have another lightweight aggregate, expanded shale. Again, not as heavy as your typical backfill material, but it's actually heavy enough to hold down the lightweight of that foam glass. If there's a flood condition, because that foam glass unfortunately has a tendency to float, so we have to do some ballasting to keep that in place in its final condition. And then you can see here some of the start of that our retaining wall that's going to create the boundary between the LMCR battery project and then Pure Plaza. So this is some of the upland foundation work we've been doing. So on the left here is a photo of the ramps that are, or the foundations for the retaining walls that are going to be lining the ramps to access the Garden of Remembrance. Ramps, foundations for railings. And then on the right here is the first run of salvage granite that we put back in. So this is all that Stony Creek that was taken off the waterfront, pulled off, and that foundation's kind of spun around. So it's now facing back into the park, but basically recreating that same granite back bench wall. So this will eventually have the salvage wood installed on that for seating. Last. Then this is the start of our topping slab work on the left-hand side. Reinforcing going on, and then this is I think this is the lowest elevation of what is eventually going to become the slip. So this elevation here is about the same elevation as the existing wharf. And then there's going to be ramps up to an intermediate elevation, and then another ramp up to the finished elevation on the left. So it gives the flexibility to grow if there are any different tidal condition, and then for the wharf to kind of grow as the sea level rises as we're anticipating. And then on the right, just another shot of the reinforcing going in on the deck, and then some more of the upland foundation work. And then left here, which was a big milestone for us, was our third topping slab pour, but it was the topping slab pour that got us down to the end of what we're calling our phase 1-1. And then on the right here, additional foundation work. Again, these are all going to be either filled with planting soil, recreate the Garden of Remembrance, and then we're clad with the granite that we've been salvaging. Here is a current shot. I think this was taken in the beginning of May. Aerial showing the wharf structure being poured in place, and how much progress we've made upland. And then as you're going to the upper left picture, you can see kind of the different stages of the construction as we're working our way down from the East Coast Memorial down towards Pier A.
Do you mind just stepping up there and just pointing and telling us what we're looking at a little bit? If you don't mind, I think it would help us, certainly would help me.
So you have a laser pointer on that thing as well.
Yeah,
The
whatever.
top one is a laser. Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
All right, so East Coast Memorial right here. So this is this was the interface line between phase 1 and phase 2. So the front 30 feet adjacent to the water is the new wharf structure. So what you're seeing here is the first slip right here, with the ramps and everything that are going to allow us to access the boats at the different elevations of the tide. And then as you're working your way along the waterfront, that is the new topping slab poured. So that's at elevation 10 right now. And then we have about a foot of buildup with pavers and the finishes to bring us up to our finished elevation of 11. Then behind that, you can see, that's all, let's see if I can get.
Can we use the pointer again?
I went the wrong one. Hit the wrong button.
That's okay. You're going the wrong direction.
I'm going the wrong. I think I held it. Go back now.
But this,
There you go.
yeah.
Technical
We were-
difficulties.
yeah.
One more.
That's one, yeah.
One more.
One more.
There we go. So then the upland, like here is all where we're recreating the Gardens of Remembrance. That's the ramps we were showing, all the planter beds that are going in. And then this picture on the left here is the kind of the progress, or you can kind of see how the wharf's being built. So starting from Pier A, which is kind of the last thing we're getting to in this progression. These are the piles being driven, and right here are pile caps going in. Then these red elements between the pile caps are pieces of false work to hold the beams in. And so those beams get held in place, and then there's a cast in place splice that gets done. And then once those beams are in, you get those precast caps sitting on top. And then the fascia panels come in, and once all that precast is in, we're pouring that cast in place concrete, which kind of acts as like the glue to hold everything together. Then like an upland, some more of the foundation work, the lightweight fill, like.
So this is something I was right.
That one's full, that's the one.
You?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, don't touch that.
Don't worry, I could fix whatever.
Also, before I start, can you just take the title there, speaking privileges? I completely forgot to ask that at the beginning.
So yeah, give me 1 sec to stop the share.
No worries.
And
Just want to remind everyone of the committee members to please sign in.
If you'd like to, at this point too, Angela Howard might be joining us from Battery Park City, if you want to unmute her as well.
let's see who I've got rolling. So I have one person from DDC. I have Marcia Polico. I have Nicholas from Parks. I have Umberto Galarza. And that's it. And a dial-in user who I don't know who they are. I will ask the dial-in user to identify. Hi, for a dial-in user starting 929, could you tell us who you are?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Who is on the phone, please?
Hi, yeah, sorry, I was making sure you could hear me. Sorry, I've lost my voice, but it's Catherine Kowalski with the Bureau of Coastal Resilience.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. I'm gonna move you over to be a panelist. Thank you.
Is that?
Catherine from DEP.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so Kyle is here and Kyle is, Kyle,
Don't unmute me, just,
he can unmute himself anytime he would like.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that.
So let's get us back to your slides.
Yes.
There you go.
Sorry for hijack.
No worries.
Planting window, so we have trees that are just getting delivered. This is really showing what we're planning to plant this season. So that would be kind of around the horseshoe of Castle Clinton, the planter beds along Gardens of Remembrance. And we can get a raised side open. Are some plantings just by the way the season's going. And construction's following up. We are holding off until fall. Really just want to make sure that these plants take hold. We don't deal when it's too hot out. Swan, so these are some of the trees getting delivered. These came in last week. I think the first 3 planted today. We have 11 more going in tomorrow. Plants, actual herbaceous plantings and shrubs coming in shortly thereafter, midweek. Stony Creek, I know we've shown a few pictures before, and Patrick put this in a slide, but I also brought several Brian Trotsky's, a little piece of the battery for everyone here. So if we wouldn't mind pass this around. Piece of Stony Creek granite. That these are little trimmings, so feel free to toss these around. But so as these are going in, again, there is some modification that's created It's keeping the same profile what was there originally. But something cool to highlight, we have the notch walls, which is pen seating, accessible. So that's actually a new element. So the only new pieces in this entire run right here are these few pieces right here, just to make up that alignment. So it is really rewarding to kind of see how it's all getting pieced back together. So it's highlights in progress. We have most of the run done on this. And then the granite fascia. So this is the old work fascia that we pulled off. We salvaged early on. It was a brutal effort to get off, but we think it's coming together really well because we have these beautiful mock-ups. So Patrick was mentioning the actual fascia panels that sit in the water. These installations are going to be actually at the slips. So as you're boarding the ferries to Statue of Liberty, you're able to actually touch a piece of history as you go along. So this is refaced, resized, retooled, and it'll be reinstalled across all those slips as well as the operating. Highlighting some of the Envision goals. So this was early on. We are darn near close to hitting that exact number. We had a little bit of C&D that we ended up actually trucking out as opposed to barging out, just based on logistics, based on feasibility of it. Big thing that don't have on here, which actually drives this number to a much more impressive number, is all the precast elements. So we couldn't really put out during the bid, like you have to use this precast with these that vendor. It would really just limit the pool, which is not fair wise. So everything that we have precast is coming from Virginia. That's all getting barged to site. So all those precast elements come via barge, it's panels, pile caps, beams, planks, fascia panels. So we're able to offset a lot of that trucking. So it's very beneficial. But
Can you tell us more about the locations on the map?
yes. So lower light up here is where that expanded shale that Patrick's talking about, the heavier one that ballasts down the foam glass. So this is the only, there's two in New York that produced it. One actually went under. So this is the only place that's accessible now. We can get it. So rather than trucking all the way down through the Hudson Valley region, through the Capital region, we're actually able to bring it down the Hudson. So transloading it at a facility near Albany, barging it down to the job site. That actually just came in today, which I have some photos on my phone. I can show up one later. But clean earth is for soil and construction demolition debris will go to. We actually been using Bayshore and a facility over in Brooklyn, Sims, and Logo. They've been taking all our concrete, all our metal, and Bayshore in Jersey has been taking all our soil, which they're able to recycle and actually basically reuse it as repurposed fill. So they can treat it. They do have a really cool thermal treatment plant out there. Yeah, that aggregate. So this.
I'm sorry, they take the soil that you took out, I'm
Yep.
sorry to interrupt, and then if they find any contaminants, say,
So we know that it does have a certain level of contamination just because all of like Manhattan infilling is usually historic fill, it's demo buildings, demo concrete, whatever someone wanted to do to build it out back in the day when there really weren't regulations. So we knew that there was a level of contamination. Nothing on the site was hazardous by any means. We had no petroleum impacts, but it was above like restricted use regulations that you can't like put it as fill for a park site. So we were able to ship it over to Bayshore. They do a thermal treatment and it basically gets rid of all the heavy metals, contaminants, and they can repurpose it as general fill. So it's pretty cool how we're able to take a waste and make it into a reusable product.
Could you just explain those numbers again?
Yeah, of course.
The 378 and the 63.
Yeah, so that's the carbon emissions that we realized if we were to transport this via truck as opposed to barging it. So by being able to use barges to get the lion's share of our aggregate precast on the job site, we're able to offset our carbon significantly. So this was one of the heavy efforts we had in the early conception of this project. We're like, hey, this is a very tight area to get to. We want to keep it as much off the road as possible. How do we really get to that? So rather than 17,000 trucks or 1,700 trucks coming into the job site, we're able to really just bring all of the barge. There are still deliveries that have to be made landside, ready mix concrete, small deliveries, but the lion's share of it, especially the precast, was a huge feat to deliver more. How many piles bring on barge? 80 piles.
Yeah, barge load's about 55, and you can get some additional precast on there as well, so.
As opposed to about like 10.
At 60-foot piles, we're probably getting one or two a truck, and something that would be able to make it down the lower Manhattan, so. There's really no better way to do it. Take one delivery instead of 30.
Yeah, so this really just highlighting the numbers right here. And again, our actual carbon footprint of Voice is going to go up based on precast. Let's get those numbers in.
And then the last location that.
Oh. That's where the foam glass aggregates. That's where that, very light to, approximate.
Thank you, very welcome.
And I'm just gonna walk you some aerials, just kind of show the progress over time. So this is March, this is when we first started our salvaging efforts. Just finished our salvaging efforts right before the heavy marine construction came in. We did not have a aerial photographer on retainer until June. So this is now coming in June. This is showing really that deck getting demoed, sheet pile walls enacting their temporary stabilization for the shoreline. And again, showing kind of the construction equipment we have out here, a crane that was used to, which is actually setting up for pile driving over at the delineation line. And right here, it's 1260, it's a rather large machine that's mounted on a barge, and that's able to pull stuff off the deck, pull out piles, so have clear ways to drive our new piles. July, you can see over here the false work, that's setting up for the pile driving, the deck is fully demolished, and we really just started doing large scale upland clearing, since back in July. And pretty impressive how we're going towards September, we have a ton of piles already in. If you see right here, the lion's share of soil has already been excavated, it's getting stockpiled, ready to be transloaded to its final destination. But we have all the work going on behind here, that's getting cleared out, piles going in, and this false work being stripped. So the false work basically acts as a template for where we locate the piles, how to drive them down, so that way they're right in the right position. This is my favorite photo. It's really showing how heavy marine oriented this project is. So we have 3 cranes and we also have an equilibrium crane. So this is actually able to move across the platform and it has a bucket on it that is the size of a triaxle truck. So each scoop is equivalent to 1 truck essentially. So that was used to offload the entire soil and construction debris pile. And in the next photo,
Wait a minute, where is that? You just-
Yeah, you're talking really fast.
sorry,
No, it's
talk really.
This is an amazing piece. Where is that piece? that you got right off it?
This thing right here, so that bucket right there, it's the size of a triaxle truck. It can hold 18 cubic yards of soil.
Still.
Oh, it's quite large. It was really cool to see out there. We actually had the smaller version of it out this morning, bringing over some more of that expanded channel. So
And did the tugboats have to stay there? I mean, it's,
the tugboats don't have to stay there, so there are things called spuds. So these actually go down into the mud line and they hold the barge in position.
okay.
So tugboats are used, I mean, we typically will have 1 or 2 out a couple days a week to do these barge moves, just because those can't move on their own. We do have 1 tug on site, it's called a pusher, it's a much smaller tugboat that can slightly alter location, but for actual it moves across like the job site, you need a tugboat. I'm talking too fast, just tell me, you just.
No, no, you're great.
Sorry.
We're not shy.
So, as I mentioned, when we offloaded all that soil and fill, we were able to onload, bring in all the foam glass. That's a mountain of foam glass aggregate over here, really showing that kind of regression we have going from East Coast Memorial down. We have obviously piles going on pile caps, over to beams, again towards planks. And this is back in March. Again, by the number of cranes we have on site. Now we're down to 2. So this is what you'll see on a daily basis outside for us. Likely this is gonna be a setup running out. All of the work that is going on upland, so those are all those retaining walls that are going in. As soon as the topping slab's poured, we can get the finalized fill, our final elevations, start clouding the granite, and really kind of pushing ahead with this project. But this is the photo that Patrick had up. Really just highlighting where the topping slab is, planks, beams, and it's just repeat the process all the way down. We're finally into what we like to call the Esplanade area, right by Gas Clinton. And it's a much more workable area than the very narrow area we're right over here. This is a very, very tight area. It's fun. And I'll let Kyle take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kyle. I'm the community construction liaison for the Battery Coastal Resilience Project. The most recent construction notice for the project was published to the website in February, and our most recent newsletter was published in March. Just a reminder, if you'd like to be added to our mailing list, there's a link on the contact page of the project website where you can sign up. Happy to report we've received very few concerns or inquiries to the project inbox, but as always, if you have questions or concerns, you're welcome to reach me by email or phone. The email address is here, info@batterycoasterresilience.com.
I think that's our last slide.
So, yeah, I'm gonna take questions on the battery, but the first question I have, and I'm not sure who to address it to, is one of the things we definitely, I know the community really was eager to see, is to see the plans of the battery in terms of what's being considered for the tie-in, and I assume that's gonna be covered by Battery Park City Authority. In other words, people really want to see what the next phase is in terms of the fact that the park will potentially have flood walls going right across it, and how that all will get tied in.
And so that's covered as part of the Five Eyes Seaport master plan.
Right, and
I know that they were here last month, and they have a robust schedule through the rest of the spring where there are other engagements. And so I can.
well, that was supposed to happen tonight. Tonight was, as we stated, battery coastal resilience and its tie-in with the battery side. Like, what are those walls? How is it tying into the high point in Battery Park? Sorry, the battery from the Battery Park City area. That was the sort of point of tonight. I don't know, maybe.
I was, this is more the construction.
This is just about what's there in the wharf, but we were looking for the plans to come that you certainly have given us a taste of, and the whole
Yeah.
point of this was to get more than a taste, but get a little bit more granular as to what that would be. And I guess that's not happening.
I imagine through the game of the telephone, came to us differently, but there, we will certainly have, and yeah, Alexis
I
is.
think we shared, we did like I don't think it was 3 times now that we did the tie-ins.
It's not,
It's two different times.
so it's a 360 look at the battery we asked for. So you're on the west side, connecting to the north, which connects to the South Battery Park City project, which connects over towards the east. And the Five Eyes Seaport master plan connects from the south to the north, going through potentially, or around, or whatever, the battery. That's what tonight was, what Alice was referring to, is having a one full look at every possible project that's taking, seeing it piecemeal, one by one by one, so it doesn't help the public connect all the dots.
But I actually like seeing some of these.
This is great. I just want to make clear that the point of this meeting was to, and Diana had mentioned that we would be dealing with the north side later in June, but tonight we were going to understand, if we will, the sort of east, southeast. And so are there any other things that you can tell us? Because you're building it, I guess you can, just while we're here together. I think folks are very interested to know what's happening to the battery
Yeah.
behind your work. How will this part be impacted? And this has been fascinating, but I think that's another piece we'd love to hear about.
Absolutely. I think that this photo might have the best, and I'll let what they have going on, their progress. So right here, so this is still battery. This is our post, I guess, more on western extent, so west/north. Our work really concludes right here at this wall. So that's where the connector ramp is. We got the staircase that's going to be built that connects down to Pier A. We're tapering, so we go to elevation 1, you can kind of see it in the chute level, not so clearly here. This is where we taper back down towards the Pier A interface, but we maintain at 11 via a berm, soil planted berm, all the way to
It's just a pointer because people online can't see your fingers. Sally, thank you.
So that's interesting. So you all are pretty much only doing this work piece now, and then plantings will come back where you've indicated and you're out of there.
Yes, we've already
For a while.
built the entire soil berm. We're doing this planter area to meet our design elevation. And then on some airports, they just talked about like where they're kind of tying in, but it basically keeps our elevation 11 until we hit, like, they're meeting us and then getting into their actual design elevation.
And that piece that goes up to the northern end is.
That's South Battery Park. So that's, we end right, but this is all of our sites.
So then, Jordan, in June, you would be coming back to talk about how that work is tying in and going, you know, some of the plans about that. And I mean, that wall that's going across is what we're looking to hear about. It's through the center of the park.
Well, I think we're talking past one another. There are two different walls. He's been talking about the wall that Battery Park City Authority is building
Yep.
along, whatever that is.
Battery Place.
Battery
Right.
Place. The wall that may or may not go through the park is part of the FIDI Seaport
Right.
Master
Right.
Plan, where nobody in the room is building that.
And it's not funded.
And it's not,
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, that would come in the 2030s.
All right, well, we
40s,
will
whatever.
talk about those things, yeah.
A way to, you know, we're simplifying the shape of this, kind of a triangle, if you will, where you have the two tiebacks. You have Battery Park City's tieback that they're currently constructing that is addressing coastal surge. You have this hypothetical FIDI Seaport tieback that would be the kind of other arm, and then you have the work that we're talking about so far tonight to be the front piece, the bottom part of the triangle that is addressing just sea level rise. And yes, happy, we'll figure out the time, that team will come in and talk through that.
That's great.
Triangle.
And that was very helpful. So, and we will hear, I guess, from Battery Park City. So, yeah, just a couple of other questions and then opening it up. Just, can you just tell me, what is the cost of this project?
200 million is the total budget.
And is this coming out of EDC, or when you say city capital, could you define what that means?
So it's city capital money that's funded through the city capital budget, which is through bonds that are released.
Distinct from EDC?
Yes.
There's no
That
EDC
means
personal money.
No,
going
no.
through the
Okay.
I haven't, actually lived like 4 blocks.
And have there been cost overruns? What is, you know, curious day?
Well, she worked.
No, we're currently on budget.
And on time.
Wow.
Okay, and, there's just a little, oh, just one other thing before I forget. You're fabulous and it's fascinating. The things that you're talking about, are incredible. I think everyone would love to see. It's a, anything
appropriate, but I just wanted to tell you that.
on the site, can you get a paper, tour on site of what's going on there a little bit? Like some of these, are any of those machines still there, those wonderful?
So.
Everything's gone?
So so the big ones that really.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
nice.
it was one of my favorite machines was on the job site, honestly. But we do have some work going on right now that we can definitely
We
facilitate.
can, similar to what we did
Yes,
in
you're-
February,
Yes.
we can facilitate another.
You're on. I think that was fabulous. So let's set that up.
Schedule that through Diane.
And then one other question last, I promise. I'm not gonna come back still. The shale that you're added into the lightweight aggregate, how did you discover it was too lightweight? Like it started to fly around
So-
or it hadn't been?
This was something that came up actually as some Stantec. Actually, I'll go back to the photo that I had. Very good. Second, so Stantec is the engineer of record. They basically were able to put together kind of a calc package. There's obviously product data out for all these materials. So the foam glass is basically a foam product, and is much more buoyant, so it has a lower unit weight, which actually isn't that lightweight kind of characteristic. So, and like, I mean, they use on like terra firma behind like bridges as structural fill, but since this is being used in a marine environment that over time will be prone to flooding, they realized like, hey, we need to weigh this down. It was able to pull up our excavation depth, be able to pull us out of deep watering, actually reduce the amount of soil we actually had to remove to get enough like kind of that lateral load off of new wharf. But to put it down, but like, hey, if we don't have enough material on top of this, it will float up. So I think it's what, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, or 3-to-1 ratio?
Oh, 2-to-1?
It's 1-to-1. For every saturated foot, you need a foot of unsaturated material. Or if you use a material like the shale, which is a denser material, you can get away with a lesser profile. So if basically we have enough shale here where we have the foam glass fully saturated, the shale will hold that down.
So you're happy with that result? You thought that was just acceptable?
Yes, it has its challenges. It wasn't the easiest material to work with in a tidal environment, but I think overall it is working
Would you
out.
do it again?
With different constraints, next to the tidal environment
Right,
where
like-
you're trying to place it, yes.
Could I ask people to please put themselves on mute? Thank you, that are online. Thanks very much, that are not
And
presenting.
also, we gotta realize that there's still like planting soil that's going on top of here. There are paving units. So that's all adding to that weight that's gonna balance.
Interesting, fantastic. Okay, committee members.
And Laura's on one.
Okay. Tammy's in here, so go ahead, Tammy, and then Laura.
So I wanted to go back to the large photo that you have of the giant area and ask, what improvements or stabilization are you doing around what I believe looks like it's in a black box, the Merchant Marine Memorial and the access that's over by Pier A? So if you go to the,
So the memorial is being protected during construction. And
Came out,
cleaned, after construction's.
a couple of the boys are very.
Monument and plaque restoration. One that obviously being Merchant Mariners, we're keeping it protected so that way just protect from any incidentals during construction.
Blah, 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 blah. I was talking about.
I'm not sure how can.
I'm gonna demote her, just real quick.
Okay.
Got it. I got it.
About an ejection.
All right.
Thank you,
So
Tammy.
you were saying that, I mean, my question is very specific, beyond the protection, what is being done? You know, that is a pedestrian kind of and a view. Is there anything that was done to any of the berthings that are closer to Pier A or the access way in the pedestrian?
Went out that note. I was like,
Your
Let me
system.
pause. Yeah, very precise. Is there anything else that's being done?
I mean, it's,
Still being accessed through.
yeah, we're tying into Pier A Plaza and that's kind of, the end of our project. And we're not back, our city's doing a whole improvement plaza. But yeah, from, I guess, really where the old wharf ended, that we're just kind of coming right up to that interface, dropping the elevation down to the existing, plaza elevation.
So in the old piers, there were a variety of different types of ships that could berth along the battery. We have had tall ships, we have had sailboats, and obviously statue cruises, who that's mostly designed for through EDC. One of the things I noted, and we've discussed before, is there's no electrification that was considered in the redoing of the wharf. But were the other types of boats considered in terms of, will it be possible with the gangways and things like that to dock those boats there?
So yes, those are designed to be adaptive for those boats that are docking and also to meet whatever sea level rise occurs over time. And we've also made it a point to be more universally accessible.
And I don't know if it's, I would assume the construction guys could give us a feed on this. How boats dock when they're electrified versus, you know, front load, bow load, things like that, diesels that we see in other piers. Is there a possibility within the construction that you've seen that there could be an easy way to electrify the pier to provide for the hopeful change to hybrid boats?
Being completely honest, I think you would need the whole electric service brought into the park. I don't know if there's enough power. Really, the only power we have is DOT lighting. There's no real electric service in the park for that, so I'm not sure we'd say that.
That's interesting. Okay.
All right, Laura, sure.
Hi, yeah, can you guys hear me? I wanted to follow up on Tammy's comment about wanting to see all of the battery at once for the next meeting. Is the Alexis on the call? Alexis Taylor? Is that?
Yeah.
See Alexis? Okay, great. So yes, I think we want to see the 3 different alignments that you showed briefly before, and then also the Coast Guard area and how the open space continues or doesn't continue from the battery around towards the east side. we really want to have continuous green down here. So, I think we're all very, like this view, yeah, this is the great view. Like ideally, in big U fashion, that green color would just continue around on the roofs of the buildings and keep going so that there's just this green band, this green emerald band around the prow of Manhattan. That's the ideal. So whatever we can do to get that with all this investment would be really a triple win.
Totally, yeah.
And just a note that the FIDIC 14 will be tabling in the battery, I believe, next week. We can come to the June meeting. I think I'm catching up with Alexis. And there's a plan for a public meeting either at the end of June or early July, specifically on that component of the project. So
Jordan, thank you. Where's the tabling?
yeah, I believe it's within the battery. We can get you the exact location.
Can you do that quickly? Because you said it's next week. This is open to the public, right? So we should be getting,
Tabling?
yeah, because I don't think we have anything out about that from the.
Yeah, like
previous-
which day?
Jordan, this is Alexis. I can chime in. So we're going to be there 3 days next week, Wednesday, Friday, and a weekend day.
Oh, great.
We're doing 3 different locations, so I can send you exactly where we'll be in the park. But the idea was to capture the broadest number of users. So we're doing a early morning tabling, a end of work tabling, and then midday on the weekend.
Thanks, Alexis. Can you send it to the board ASAPs with precise times and locations where everyone would meet and any rain dates that you might have, so we all can get this information out? I think. a lot
Yeah,
of people
absolutely.
really-
And then the larger public meeting will likely be either the last week in June or the second week in July, to miss the 4th. We don't want to compete with the 4th of July. And we're looking at public schools in the area to hold that. So as soon as we have the location solidified, I will also send that, but I'll send you the tabling locations later tonight.
And then the third, which I thought was happening tonight, will happen June.
Yes.
I'm sorry, at the community board level.
Yes.
At the community board. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot.
For the tabling, Alexis, can you please have the Battery Conservancy send it out to their wider distribution as well as the Downtown Alliance?
Of course.
Because that should be
Yeah.
help cover the reliable park users who know the park and love the park well, as well as the surrounding business communities.
Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely have them distribute it.
And then I appreciate Hunter Roberts answering about the electrification. I didn't get the chance to ask that follow-up, which would be from the Parks Department, and I'm sorry, the Parks Department on the line there, but what is a possibility for electric service within the park? It's not obviously the Battery Conservancy, it's parks perhaps who could answer that. Oh, your park's on.
Grace Tang should be on, Michael Bradley.
Let's look to watch it.
Can you repeat the
Hello,
question?
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
If you
hey,
don't
this is
mind.
Grace from Parks. Yeah, I do recall we had a discussion about it early on during the design phase. I mean, obviously the boats are run by private operator. I do remember just like the feasibility of having, thinking about like how electric vehicles would be charged on the site. It would really require a lot of big infrastructure. So I think the thought was that any charging of such types of electrified boats would have to happen off-site. Maybe that's in the Brooklyn Marine Terminal or Navy Yard, or some other off-site location. But the amount of infrastructure required to have a charging stations would just be like too enormous for the wharf. Not appropriate for like a public park. So I mean, I think we went as far as that to think about it, but yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna punt this back to the 5I Seaport Master Plan. as to have that as a consideration of how to get power to the park. Because Grace, right now, the contract is with Statue Cruises. So the boats go primarily back and forth between the Battery and the island. So it goes from one island to two other islands. And unless there's some kind of a charging ability somewhere between that loop, either Ellis, Statue, Liberty Island or Battery, the Battery itself, then actually it doesn't help. It's not going to help us at Red Hook or the others because there won't be enough charge to do the routes. And if we're looking at infrastructure changes for the Battery that will involve massive upheaval from Fidei Seaport, perhaps, Grace, that would be something you'd be able to help advocate for in order to make hybrid boats a possibility on the Battery, because otherwise it doesn't sound to me like we are ever going to be able to get hybrid docking in the Battery. Thoughts?
So this is Alexis, I'm speaking for Fidei Seaport. The technology around electric charging and batteries for maritime use is just really rapidly advancing. So I do just want to say, even in the time I've been working on the Fidei project, like our ferries team went from thinking that this technology was pretty far off and going to be like a major infrastructure investment to understanding, and it still will be, but to better understanding kind of what the needs are, what the downtime is, and what are the best options for recharging. We will, of course, as part of Fidei, I mean, we're, building new land. We are investing in the grid, and we are providing electrification both at the proposed Staten Island Ferry, TGI Ferry, because we all know that TGI is already well on its way towards electrification, plus Pier 11. As part of NYC Ferry, they're looking also at electrification in places like Navy Yard and Red Hook. The thing about the kind of like, you do need some down or idling time. So like the most recharge happens overnight. Think about it a little bit like your phone, although that's a huge oversimplification. You want it charged at night so that you have a full battery. And then, there may be some need during repetitive runs in the afternoon to do a slight recharge, but you won't have that kind of like full over, I don't think you would want the boats parked at the wharf overnight recharging. So you would really look to where they are parked, either I know some of them are in like the Jersey City Marina, some of them are in the Brooklyn side, but that's really where you would get your kind of full battery. And then there's the opportunity, and these are lighter weight now and less disruptive, to have kind of like battery chargers that are easily kind of installable either on Ellis Island or Statue, or even could be at the wharf, but it's not like the full-fledged overnight infrastructure charging that you need where the boats are actually docked at night. And I can get more details on that for people who are very well studied up on the latest of this battery technology. I'd be happy to come back with it because we are contemplating it for Fidei Seaport.
Great, thanks, Alexa. That'd be
Good to
great.
hear.
Okay, so
Catherine.
yes to follow up, Catherine. And by the way, Catherine Fayus was our former board chair here and is one of the reasons we're all at this table. Because she's a huge supporter of everything to do with resiliency, and so we thank you. But go ahead, Catherine, question time.
On that note, Jordan knows exactly what I'm gonna ask, and I gave her the prequel there to walk about. So, looking at that slide, is any of it gonna be available for July 4th? For the Lower Manhattan Historical Association, for their Independence Day Parade, and for their cannon salute to the 50 countries as they join the Union? Can you make a little bit available? It's very hard even to see the Statue of Liberty.
Do we
Front here.
Let me just go back.
Just
schedule wise, I think we have some areas that may be open, we're still working at that.
Yeah.
For the small parts.
If you have a small part and you can shoot
It's,
3 cannons.
it's something that we're.
Is that-
It's something we can discuss in parts about opening some areas.
How close can the cannons be to each other?
Yeah.
Where are they pointing?
Out, and they're blanks anyway, but it's very loud. So they were near the view before. That area there,
Yeah.
but you keep a distance between them. I'm not an expert in this at all. Did you want me to find out specifically how much room would need to be, I mean, or you could just shoot 150 times, I don't know.
Or like, Steve and Lori's team, whatever would be that.
Or is participating
Okay.
before, yes.
We have a daily, like, we talk with Steve Lager from this kind of operations.
And National Park Service, and you're working with National, we were just.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can talk with them and see like definitely what entails and the name and possibly make reason out.
I think a lot of people would love to get access of that view for Statue of Liberty, whether, you know.
If you have any, if there's any information on like footprint that you would need or what some specifics are, we can look at
Yeah,
it.
so I'll get your information.
All right, yeah, thanks, Catherine. So
So
you'll-
remind me when this is gonna be done.
Let's dwell on this, talk about connection.
Okay, hang on.
Thank you.
But before you go there, are there any other questions for the battery team specific to their project? Thank you very much. We'll follow up with that tour. Look forward to it. And rock is being offered up there at the front of the table. Okay, so again, just restate your name.
Yes, of course.
For everybody on the phone.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Dan Dixon. I'm the Director of Planning and Design at Battery Park City Authority. I'm joined by our communications team. You might know them already, Nick and Becky, and also our construction community liaison, Mike Ryan, who I'll introduce formally later. Also joining us online, I believe, is our VP of Design, Kimberly Saul. But I wanted to dwell on this slide because we talked about where the Battery Park City project ties into the battery. So you can see on the left side of the screen, Battery Place. On the bottom left is Pure Plaza. Our project runs along the south part of Battery Place, along the north side of the Battery Park, and ties in fairly close to State Street at the end. And let me show you the rest of them. So I'll be talking about the south and the northwest projects in this presentation, which is, it's an exciting time because we're wrapping up, close to being wrapped up on the south project and also starting construction later this year on the northwest project. So right here is Battery Place. So as it snakes along the top of the battery, the flood barrier system actually runs underneath this elevated park. It's burned underneath the park and then connects to the high point between the Museum of Jewish Heritage and 50 Battery Place along First Place. And that's kind of, that'll be a sacrificial leg because once the Northwest project is complete, that will connect the entire system to be resilient. So I wanted to give you some construction updates. There's a lot going on in the South project. We're aiming to open up Wagner Park this summer, so there's a lot of things happening simultaneously. A few weeks ago, we got our first trees on site, which is very exciting for us. Paver installation is ongoing. I think they're 40 or 50% complete with that. That seems to be progressing every day. Very exciting, they're doing the railing installation along the Esplanade, so you can see Pier A in the distance there, as well as further east along that Pier A section. This is the Pier A inlet, and you can see some E-concrete being installed within the inlet, which will act as supporting marine habitat within the inlet. Here's some updates for the pavilion itself. So you can see the curtain wall installation happening here. These large openings here will be glass expanses. And then this is looking north along Battery Place. This is what we're calling the security wall. So in lieu of bollards or other security measures, we have this reinforced concrete security wall, which will protect the park and the pavilion behind it.
Is there anything on that?
It's stone clad. that what you mean?
There'll be stone on top of it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had worked with PDC a couple of years ago to determine the right choice of stone, for example, on that. And a portion of the project that will take a little bit longer because of some unforeseen subsurface conditions is within Pier A Plaza itself, as well as some work within Battery Place. There was a lot of Con Ed infrastructure that we discovered as we dug underneath Battery Place, which extended that portion of the project somewhat. So you can see we are currently installing a tide gate within within Pier A Plaza on the left here, that's looking north. And here is a manhole cover that we're making watertight, so that in the event of some kind of storm surge, water would not be erupting from beneath the grate. So as I mentioned, we're opening Wagner Park this summer. Construction is accelerating. It seems like every day there's things happening. And then substantial completion on the rest of it, primarily the portion along the Battery and Pier A Plaza, will be end of this year, early 2026.
So when you say the summer,
I have been told not to say a specific date, but we're aiming for late July. So the Northwest project, so the South project is approximately 0.6 miles long. And this one's 1.3, so more than double the length. It'll connect, you can see here, it's kind of hard to see, but this is the Museum of Jewish Heritage here at First Place. And so it'll connect all along the Esplanade and reach a high point near Greenwich Street and Moore Street in Tribeca. The work recently with the Northwest project, we've been working with PDC. We've been finalizing the FEIS, which was published today. We're working with PDC published today. Yep. We've been working with PDC wherever their jurisdiction lies, which is mostly at the street ends. So they're very interested in what color we're choosing for the concrete wall. We're working with them. These are some photos of we're calling them the tombstones. They're basically samples of the concrete. And as I mentioned, not the week of May 19th, but today it was published, the FEIS, so that's a big milestone for us. And we've also been doing a lot of building outreach. So last week we met with Liberty Terrace, and you can see the list of buildings we're going to meet with specifically to talk about building specific issues and how long construction will be occurring right outside of people's buildings.
and when you do building outreach, can you just say a little bit more about what that actually means for people in the public?
Sure. So they would be very interested, for example, what if any impact would be out their windows? You know, if it's going to be a different height of the wall versus what's currently
Well,
there.
I'm also like, so if you have an apartment in one of these buildings.
Yes.
Who are you speaking to in each of these buildings?
So it'll be a different forum depending on the building. Last week, for example, we met with Liberty Terrace, and it was an annual building meeting. So it was the board as well as all the shareholders. Some meetings we'll be meeting with just the board, I understand, but we'll be meeting with them several times. So our hope is to capture as many people that live in the building as possible.
I just think that we want to make sure that everyone that has an apartment in those buildings has a chance of hearing about this before groundbreaking.
Yes, that's our goal. That's our goal. You know, we've done, I think, 7 larger public meetings at this point, which you can only get to some level of specificity when you talk to that large of an audience. So our goal here is to talk literally about this unit and how that's going to be impacted directly.
That's.
I don't see,
Finish the presentation
Sure, sorry
before
about
we.
yeah,
That's
I'm not going to raise a specific
Oh, go
building.
ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Independence Plaza is not on there, and those red buildings at the north, I don't see them listed.
That's right. You know, I believe that we will be meeting with them on a different track. Nick, do we have any update there?
The update there is that Stellar Management, we're running through them for the most part, because it's a rental unit, doesn't mean we don't want to be in touch with Diane Lapson and the team there. But the work isn't going to be starting as soon there as it will for the buildings, say between North Cove and South Cove. And make sure that we get into all the buildings, but the priority is certainly the buildings along that southern stretch, because that's when construction's coming close.
There's also-
Independence Plaza will be on a list. That's talking about like buildings in the next,
Okay.
coming months.
So just on your radar then for the future is you've got Federalist townhouses on Harrison Street and
I'm familiar with those. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the note. And Mike is busy taking notes, so he's jotting all this down.
very good.
Okay, so as I mentioned, our goal is to keep the community informed about ongoing plans. Neighborhood Improvement Project is a project that we're rolling out in hopes to provide some improved public open spaces during construction. You know, we recognize that construction will be closing some portions of Battery Park City, so we're aiming to provide some transportation improvements and some public space improvements in other stretches of Battery Park City during construction. That's going to start later this year. I introduced Michael Ryan, who's our community construction liaison. As I mentioned, we have ongoing meetings with individual buildings. And later this year in fall of 2025, we'll have another larger public meeting, which I think will be our 8th. So I'll open it up to questions.
What kind of signage are you putting out and about? I mean, were you talking about informing the community? The community never seems to really understand until the bulldozers are rolling down the street.
Yes.
There's also, I'm sure we'll dissect in the FEIS, but you know, there was a lot of conversation of potential for where could a variance be had to preserve mature trees. We've never seen an answer on anything as it relates to a variance being sought by the Battery Park City Authority. At every single meeting it was asked. So now that the FEIS is out, we haven't seen it obviously, but the question really will be that, yeah, there's a lovely map about how many trees are being destroyed, and yes, you know, new ones will come in, but we got a presentation from EDC on possibilities for Seaport coastal resiliency, which included trees less than 15 feet from the wall, which is what Battery Park City Authority told us was required by FEMA certification. So when you're talking about informing and ongoing, there are still questions that need to be answered for the public that were not. I don't know if they're in the FEIS. We haven't seen it yet, so we'll look. But key points for the community have always been, how long is the construction? Can't we preserve more trees? Why are we, you know, concrete instead of we're losing the beautiful, you know, pink stuff that we have? You know, why is everything so heat-based? Concrete's not necessarily. And we were always told, well, those will be conversations later on. That's kind of like picking out the drapes once the building's designed.
Well, we all concrete, and you want to.
Correct, yeah, so there are a few things there. One, you spoke to signage and notification of closures, for example. That was one lesson learned we had on the South project, where we had a community construction liaison taking down a complaint log. And you're right, a lot of the issues people had were understanding when street closures were happening, when work was going on. So we're gonna be providing constant updates during Northwest construction. As well, during the neighborhood improvement projects, we'll be rolling out signage to let people know what streets and areas are gonna be open. during that, for pedestrians, for bikes, et cetera.
I will say we're very thankful to Jeff and the BPC committee. We had a nice presentation about the BPC enhancements earlier this month, May 1st at the BPC committee, with a commitment to come back to you all in July. I believe it's now July 8th, Jeff, with an update on that. And that includes signage for the duration of the Northwest project, and also some opportunities where we can for street improvements, that might touches where they exist, and also some pedestrian and traffic calming measures as part of that as well. So for those who are interested, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, and let me add on the signage, and I think you guys have absorbed this. It's not just the streets that are closed and the access ways, although that's very important, we want that, but also explanatory of this is what's going on here, or this is what's going to be going on there, and why. I understand there's, for example, going to be mock-ups of what the wall is going to look like. It would be nice if there was a signage right there and tells people that's what that is. So they're not scratching their heads and thinking, I thought this was going up, 2 years from now, not right now, that kind of thing.
You're right, that kind of communication is gonna be great, and we are rolling that out. We have published the mock-up one pager, we're calling it. Oh, not quite yet, but soon we'll be rolling out some more information about the mock-ups, which will be at the end of Albany and Third Place, 2 different locations. And you're right, where our goal is for that signage to be indicative of what's going on behind the walls and some views for the public.
So, hang on a second, let's move around here a little. So Richard,
So there is test drillings on Harrison Street. Could you share with us what you've learned from that?
So I can't speak specifically to that test file, I think is what you're referring to. I know that we've done a number of test files, and the goal there is to see what's underneath in terms of utilities. As I mentioned on the South project, we didn't know what was going on underneath Battery Place, and so when we discovered this spaghetti of Con Ed wires, it held up construction a great deal. So our goal is to do test pits here and there to figure out what we need to avoid, what we need to accommodate. So that was part of that effort.
Which I would say, if helpful, we talked a little bit about the BBC committee. Net from a layperson's perspective, and I say this as decidedly a layperson. The point of doing the test piles was to ensure that the assumptions we had made with the design about having the FPS where it is and supports, that wasn't over-designed, it was under-designed.
Right, I remember that.
And net, what I've heard from the project team is it's the assumptions they made and how they designed it were appropriate. So we didn't overbuild it. We didn't over-design it.
So confirmed.
So confirmed it is what we thought it was.
And are they finished, the tests?
They're all finished, and site restoration is completely done at the Harrison Street and the Stuyvesant Plaza, or the 2 places that were, and then the Route 9A rather, I should say. And then site restoration is underway at the last 2, so it's done. The site restoration is underway at Belvedere Plaza and at Third Place, at the third place in South End.
In South End, yes.
Thanks. So, we've seen a couple different large-scale projects in Battery Park City. Some had rave reviews for community engagement. And I'll say, once the West Bank Bridge was being constructed, their CCL person, the way they dealt with the community, the type of notification, how they engaged was spectacular. And that's a big compliment coming from me, who was probably, not so happy. But when I compare it, no shade being thrown at South Battery Park City, it wasn't a project. But much like the first one, it wasn't beloved. Now it's being done. But still, we would get complaints currently to date about drilling noise, early hours, weekend work that wasn't anticipated by the community. I have a lot of trepidation that I need to say in advance, because it's about people work from home. The amount of conversations we've had from families who work in the 50 Battery building and teachers who I've talked to, because I've been at 276, saying the amount of noise is spectacular. And they're struggling some days because this is not what it was in the past. Work from home is super real.
Right.
It makes me concerned, and I'm putting it out there, that those conversations per building for the noisiest work needs to be robust. Because for all those buildings that you've listed, there's gotta be people living there who work from home.
Yeah.
And the amount of noise is spectacular.
and people with infants.
And people with small children, which brings me to phasing. We initially understood at the South Project that there would be phasing and that it would go area by area so that the construction would move. In the end, that is not how the project was determined to be. And everything was leveled all at once, and it was one giant site because that needed to be done. But that actually didn't make it any easier for the people who thought, well, we're gonna have this section here. No, this section is now needed for construction vehicles. This section, even though it's right by the people's homes, is used as the storage space and the oncoming, incoming, back and forth of trucks and things like that. Consideration of how to make that better would be great before you bring one truck on site. Because it did kind of stick in the craw of people who lived right next door, that the only space used for staging was underneath people's windows, and that noise started really early in the morning and continued all the time. Whereas we didn't understand why you couldn't be staged in the Battery, which was way further away from people. So you're doing the Northwest. I know you have to figure out staging, but almost every location is under somebody's windows. So finding a way to stage where things are stored, even if it's barged, like the bridge was, and everything came in by water, like the Battery project is doing, that kind of focus would make the next 7 years of construction significantly better. Because I love the fact that it says it's going to be done by 2030, but how is it phased? Where will people expect to have noise? When will they expect the noise to be done?
Right.
And we have to assume that maybe it won't be done by 2030 because that's what construction is, right? Is there a point that you have in your contract that is a deadline? That there's a penalty if it's not done by?
So I think it would help if someone from our progressive design build spoke to construction logistics, because those are still being ironed out, frankly. But I think you answered the question that I was going to ask, which was what made the West Thames outreach so good? And it sounds like having everything delivered precast to the site made for an easier construction.
They actually talked to the kids in the schools. They had tours where, like, when things were coming in over, even it was on the overnight, they actually gave robust information. They set up corrals that said, you can't come here because it's too close and too dangerous, but if you're up, here's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I'm always advocating for more signs, and one of the things is the pile driving and the work that you're doing.
Yes.
I would love that to have been wrapped with a, this is why we're doing this. And I go back to the education of, you know, there are, you know, people that, you know, adults, but there's also children that want to know, like, that we're building things for the next generation. And so it's not a negative all the time to have sign.
Yeah.
People have very mixed views about this, but I still haven't seen a sign that tells a story. And there's a big story to be told. And the story here is, you know, this is one of the first giant puzzle pieces of resiliency going in not only New York City, but the country. And there's going to be lessons learned. And, you know, the rest of the world is paying attention. And I don't understand why we're not educating ourselves more about this. And I don't know why there's not programs like videos and YouTube things and like, you know, man on the street, like, here's what we're doing today. Like, it's interesting. And I don't know why we're hiding the ball. And it's going to be painful and constructing and all of that. So we've got the people that are living through it, which is going to be really difficult. And we just need to be upfront and tell people how difficult it's going to be. So then they can make the decision if they stay there or not. Because to Tammy's point, some people may decide they can't stay there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that is going to be very tragic for people that are, you know, that are in that situation. But on the other side is that what's coming, you know, help get people educated about it so we can say, yes, there's a lot of pain, but here's why we're doing it. And if you're not doing that, then the question is, well, why are we doing it if they're hiding it?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I totally agree with you, and it's refreshing to hear that someone else is interested in the work, like I am.
Yeah, I mean, I literally tell people what's going on in their own neighborhoods, because I live, you know, in another, you know, outside of it, and I'm walking with friends along the water and they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I tell them, they're like, oh, well, you know, it's just, you know, and not everybody wants to log into the, you know, the big website and everything else. They just want a sign to say, here's what's coming to your neighborhood.
I totally get that. And in fact, I've actually gone to first grade classrooms and talked about the projects locally. So that's kind of fun. I think we're going to do that a couple more times.
That kind of stuff. And then, you know, honestly, I think there's a lot of opportunity to invite people in for interviews and to invite people in to this is what we're gonna do, and literally invite, junior filmmakers that are living in that neighborhood, and there's a lot of them. There are very talented, people that would love to tell the story of their own neighborhood.
I love that idea. I also should say that the individual building meetings, we're hoping will serve as that forum to reach individuals a little more closely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have done things like the site walks and reach specific meetings.
And when you're at this meeting, I think you should say, are you sliding a flyer under everybody's door, or are you putting it in everybody's mailbox?
Yes.
That's,
There's so many flyers these days.
well, I was gonna say, it just, whatever it is, there just needs to be like how do you make sure that every apartment got notification?
When I will note that you have gotten postcards and you will be getting postcards.
I did see that.
Every mailbox in the zip code will be getting postcards, so you'll physically hold it. But to your larger point, I think it's a good one. We'll be back before the BBC committee in July about the signage. Michael is our construction liaison for the Northwest project. Some of you know Katie from the South. She'll be back at BBC, I think, in June as part of our monthly update. We're hoping that Michael there as well to kind of dovetail, but he's having his kind of coming out party tonight. He's also been working on some very exciting things like movable storefront bicycle. It's going to be wrapped around the neighborhood with information about resiliency projects, so people can where they all in the parks.
What's wrapped?
Bicycle with it.
Oh, great.
Right, like
Great.
physically out in the parks. So yeah,
Great.
yes to all. I
Uh-huh.
mean, the one which will kill, but the idea of trying to meet as many people in many places as we can, in the buildings, out in the parks over the course of the project, so they're clear about what's happening, why it's important, I think is going to be key to having people understand what the work we're doing.
And
Thank you.
signs.
Larger and clearer signs.
Thank you.
Yes, we heard you, Wendy, there were great suggestions. We want to make sure the work is done as safely and as quickly and as impact as we can, although it will certainly be impactful. We also want people to understand what they're seeing and what they're seeing. So
And it's gonna start at 7 in the morning.
not necessarily every morning, but the hours of citywide construction, I believe, are 7 to 6. To the extent that this comes up in building meetings all the time, as it does, and the Gateway and others, like, can we maybe not start that heavy machine at 3 in the morning? To the extent that we can do that, we try, but we also need to make sure that the project is proceeding at pace, because if you put enough hours off of each days, it becomes 6 years instead of 5, because you're shortening the hours of each day. So
I understand intellectually, but
I hear it.
while the city was doing that sluice gate next door to Gateway, I would hear it really early. And then the baby upstairs would wake up and everybody else would hear it as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Community
painful.
needs to know if you're going for after hours variances.
Yes.
They need to know what the noise mitigation plan is. And
If there's one.
I'm sure there is. You don't do a project like this without
I'm
it.
gonna ask a couple, first of all, are there other people, I think we've really drilled home this point of impacts on the community, but I'm amazed. First of all, I don't know when you started coming a little bit more often to EPC. I'm not sure the division of what you want to tell the Environmental Protection Committee of this community board versus the Battery Park City. That's always been a little unclear, I think. But if we're talking about the environmental protection aspects and these particular items that are now tying in with the battery, would you mind going back and talking a little bit more about the Tier A area and what in fact is, what those items are that we'll be looking at? For example, I didn't realize until I saw some slide like this. I have personally never seen that, to my knowledge. Maybe, did you all see this slide? So I looked up the PDC, which was in March. I didn't know that you went to PDC. For example, I would say I'm somebody who follows this. So you never shared with the community board, you went to PDC, and you didn't share that you have 191 slides, most of which I've never seen that went before PDC. Now, I find that difficult to sort of resolve in my own mind when the whole idea of engagement is why you're here. It is not a criticism, it is simply an observation, which concerns me greatly. In a presentation like tonight, when we were asking you as a designer to talk to us about how something ties in to another part of, tremendously huge impactful plans for the city of New York, and we have seen, frankly, nothing that shows us what is this really going to look like? How big are these walls? Where exactly are they? Where is it from Tier A? How does it tie into the north end? I'm not seeing that, and I'm a little frustrated, as probably, you're aware of, from the tone of my voice, but I think it's important for you to recognize that it is important for the community to be aware of what is going on, not just that there'll be noise upstairs, but that what is this going to look like? You know, this is the first I've seen of these concrete, as you called them, I forgot what you just.
Tombstones. yeah.
Tombstones, and no, that's not probably your best name, but you know, this is,
That's not.
Where-
It's right outside of Gateway.
This is, yeah, this is,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not a gateway.
they're out there, that's what
Yeah,
you're saying.
that's-
Right.
The
But
playground.
the community, the city of New York, the people who do not live in Battery Park City
Yeah.
need, might be listening to this. So I guess I'm just asking if you could flesh out today, while you're still here, a little bit more as to what's going on in that tie-in. So maybe, I don't know,
Sure.
from other sides. or-
Yeah, that's not this.
That's a separate.
No, I understand. It just came up. I just was pointing
Yeah, no,
out
it
that.
does seem like at the start of the meeting, there was some confusion in the communication. Well, tonight was gonna be worse what it wasn't, but to the extent that we can clear on a tie-in.
No, this is exactly what we thought we would see some, but, oh, you didn't realize you were looking at the tying in.
Well, because there's, as Jeff made a nice distinction before, there's two things, right? There's tying between where the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project ends and Battery Coastal Resilience starts. And then there was the tie-in, there was these other walls that may or may not go through Battery Park, which
So, yes,
is
they-
not funded and not necessarily designed yet, right? So there's two
Are there any
questions.
other slides that show?
Seems we should be clear on what the
I don't have a lot of zoomed out slides, unfortunately. This was mostly to provide construction updates for the South project, but I'm happy to provide those.
Yeah, you know, if you could share with us what you shared with the Public Design Commission, I would have considered that essential, that the community board, where this is placed, got the same presentation as the Public Design Commission, who we pay as taxpayers. I'm just
To
saying.
be clear, the
if
Public
you-
Design
if
Commission
you-
presented in March was not the tie-in that we were talking.
No, I'm,
We're talking about two
come on.
separate things.
We are looking for, let me just say this. Part of that presentation you provided to PBC, certainly I imagine had some part of the southern portion of your slide.
No. it doesn't.
Okay, well
It's a
then,
separate thing.
then let us have that presentation sent to us as the community board and a presentation at a later date of all that went on when you come to talk to us about the FEIS, because none of that is something we've seen before. I just ran through it and most of those slides I'd never seen before. So I think it's important that the community be aware of what is in that presentation, in addition to this Pier A piece. So maybe that makes it clear that we see it all. So if you're looking puzzled.
I'm confused, but we'll.
Okay.
that
Well, the
offline.
Pier A.
One, we'd like to see the PDC presentation you gave to the Public Design
I don't
Commission
think we
in New
got
York
sent it, I don't sent, but whatever, I can.
in March of this, just a couple months ago. And two, just if it's not in that presentation, part of the Pier A tie-in.
The alignment, the overall alignment, right? Whatever you're talking about? The showing where the FBS wall, the flood barrier system
Yeah, and
goes
this
along
whole
the north.
area in the battery that is in front of Pier A,
Mhm.
that's your domain now, right?
Right.
And how that, what that's gonna
The
look like.
public
what-
plaza in
Yeah.
front of Pier A, the
Yeah.
wall as it comes out of Pier, as it comes out of Wagner and
Mhm.
travels all the way down to Broadway.
Perfect, yeah.
What?
And that might be listed publicly, the PDC presentation that we did probably 2.5 years ago now.
We've been, yeah, we've
No.
been.
I remember that
We've
calculating.
been talking about the time.
But it's been a long time. since
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yes,
So can you just talk us through that and what the timing is on the completion of the Pier A tie-in, this swash
Sure.
right there?
sure. So the construction is organized in 3 different packages, we're calling them. Package 2 is Wagner Park specifically. It's unfortunately, it's kind of off the screen,
Yeah.
but this is Wagner.
No, I'm
Park.
just talking about, if you can tell us about the most acute area of flooding that occurred was right where
Yes.
that is, right where it
Yes.
came up. So can you talk to
So-
us about
so
what the
I'm meeting-
timing and what's
And if
going
you
on
have
there?
anything online, I can certainly pull it up.
Okay, yeah, I actually wouldn't be able to point you to a specific place, but I'm sure it's listed somewhere on the. Because this would have been 2.5, 3 years ago, the TDC. But the reason why we started with the South project was because the area right in front of Pier A is one of the most vulnerable areas in all of Manhattan. I think it's only elevation 6, whereas it's frequently flooding. So that was why the South was the most urgent area for us to start. And to speak to the alignment, as I was talking about before, the 3 different packages. So Wagner Park is package 2, we're calling it. The pavilion is package 3, and package 4 is the most delayed because we've experienced those subsurface conditions as we've gone through construction. But the pavilion is
Where the restaurant used to be.
the building with the glass walls that I showed before.
Okay.
A portion will be the restaurant, a portion will be what we're calling
So you
plaza.
have the new.
Okay, can you pull it up for everyone?
Exactly.
Maybe Tammy can pull up, she's got the,
Sure.
so, and by the way, the PDC presentation I'm talking about is the Northwest Battery Park City Resiliency presentation. It's invited to the Public Design Commission on March 28th of this year. That's what I'm talking about, just so.
Right, yeah, that has nothing to do with the tie-in of PRA, though. I think
No, that is what was,
Okay,
yes,
as long as we're
yep,
clear.
yep, two different things, yep.
Right.
So now,
I will then.
anyway, well, maybe we can pull that up, but.
Yep.
So the alignment, as it goes further east along the north side of the battery, it actually gets it's a lower and lower wall. And most of that stretch is going to be burned, so you don't see any wall to begin with. It'll look mostly natural, kind of rolling hills kind of thing. And then as it gets to Pure Plaza, it will be connected to Wagner Park via flip-up gates with columns between them. So most of it will be open with flip-up gates that will have to be deployed in the event of a storm. And then Wagner Park is elevated, so most of that is burned as
So
well.
what's the timing on that piece?
That piece, end of 25, early 26.
So, yeah, I just, also, when we were looking at the building, the photo of the building itself, it's a building, it, I think is that the surface that's, is the brick colored
Yeah.
surface? Is it,
Yes, the kind of dark red.
is that
concrete.
the final,
Yes, that's the finished surface.
that's the final surface?
Yeah. And in fact, a lot of brain cells were died trying to figure out the exact perfect pigment for that concrete. So that's exactly where we arrived, yeah.
So this is what I see online.
Yes, perfect.
This is the bottom half of Wagner.
Yeah, so that's looking.
Pure to the right, looking.
I actually had a photo which was almost the same angle,
Yeah.
talking about the Pure Inlet, yeah, the e-concrete.
So the fencing the railing is that white or brown, whatever color that railing ends up being, that you were
Yeah.
showing.
Yeah, it's not that white color. I guess that must have been a previous iteration. It's closer to this in the foreground.
And this is part of the sort of wedge thing that you were,
That's right. That's right. The project is wedge
That's what-
certified.
so what's going on here now? Is that still happening?
Here's Pure Plaza itself.
And that's it.
So Pure is to the left here and we're looking north.
Is anything changed from this?
Some of the seating geometry has changed a little bit. This was a fairly early rendering, but it's more or less what you're seeing.
And is that wood or concrete?
That's wood. It's a mix of wood and stone, I believe, in that plaza. There's an aerial view of the inlet looking the other way.
And this is pretty much.
And that's what you were showing.
And actually, this is a good slide to show the alignment. So the alignment will come across Pure Plaza.
Would you do me a favor, use the pointer, the laser pointer, so people online can see? Thank you.
It wasn't working that well for me.
There you go. You have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to navigate it.
It's hard to navigate.
It's hard to navigate. So this here is a stone-clad portion of the wall. And what's not really evident is, I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty with pointing. But between this stone piece and Wagner Park, there's a series of flip-up gates, which are going to be within the grade for most of the time, unless there's a storm event, which they would be deployed up.
So if I went back to here, would that be in this zone is what you're
It
talking
would be
about?
up the stairs in the distance. You can see the columns here. You can see those stone-clad columns, which will be between flip-up gates.
These,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Supports that they gave up against.
Yep. So then moving along, just so from what Alice was asking,
I think that's what people came to see,
Yeah.
so it helps us to have something to see.
Yeah, so here's a view looking east along the north side of the battery. I think the plantings may have shifted a little bit, but the idea is that the flood wall will be burned mostly, so you won't be able to see most of it along that stretch. It'll be hidden beneath the landscaping.
It's to the right?
So in this view, it's to the left. This view, it's along the left side of the screen.
Where's the puzzle?
If you go back one,
Maybe
Tammy,
no wall there. That's further.
In
It's
here,
very,
it's
yeah,
to the right.
and here it's to the right.
here is the berm as the rider
Correct.
is driving towards,
Mhm.
riding towards Battery Park City.
Correct.
This is someone who has left Battery Park City and riding towards Fidei, and it should be somewhere over here, but there's no berm. I mean, here's that big berm.
That curb-like thing in the middle there, I would have to check back at the alignment, but that might be the end of the
Yeah,
wall.
it's about 2 feet.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
deep is that? We were discussing the depth of these walls along this wall, for example, how deep is it?
The structure doesn't have to be very deep at this point. In fact, most of the structure along here is very shallow. We had to navigate, the one train goes underneath here, as well as a lot of subsurface issues, so it's fairly shallow. I would have to get back to you about the
But
exact.
how about the beginning of the wall, even further towards?
I would have to get back to you with the exact depth.
But around.
I might be able to help you with that.
Yeah, is there a section
Here
here?
you go. This is the wall that you have leading out of Wagner. Here's that seating area that you were talking about.
The seepage barrier itself, not the wall itself, but seepage barrier, basically a steel sheet pile goes all the way down to bedrock, which varies in depth.
So it's confusing, right? Because now, I'm glad you're here, Jordan, because that was a question we had when we were on the tour of the Seaport area and we were looking at that wall, the Titanic Memorial, for example, and going down towards the waterfront. And I asked how deep was the wall, and it was answered to us 4 feet. And we questioned whether,
But
how
that
is it
doesn't
in the
have,
Battery Park, but
because that's not protected against storm surge. It's only tidal.
is that the, okay. Thank you.
There's also two different systems at play, right? There's the structure that's holding up the wall itself, and then there's the seepage barrier, which is to prevent any water from coming in from below ground to the dry side.
So that's not being taken care of in the Seaport plan?
Well, in that specific location, I think I can get you an answer, but there's obviously when closer to the water, you have additional risk, and Titanic Memorial is about as far as you can go back and a minimal footprint. So I can get you an answer on that.
Yeah, I was curious. I know we asked, Catherine, we both had that question because it seemed very inconsistent. That on one hand, there's a 4-foot depth, quite, presumably has some of similar function versus over here,
Mhm.
which I felt was down to bedrock. So,
Mhm.
yeah, if somebody could get that clarified, I think that would be really terrific. Thank you.
Is there still a cistern that was planned?
Yes,
for the lawn?
underneath the Wagner Park surface, there's, I think, an 11,000 gallon cistern.
Wow.
Yeah.
I make a really good assistant for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome, Tammy.
Yeah.
Tammy, on the front page of our website, right? So these are not.
And this is a schematic section through the pavilion. It doesn't look exactly like this in section, but generally.
Is it showing, it's funny, I stood in the Jewish Museum and I couldn't for the life of me find the cistern. Has it already been covered?
Oh, yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, that was installed before a lot of the infill units. So that would have been late 2023, early 2024.
Mhm. I'm sorry, other questions? Anybody online?
Yes, we do have questions online.
Okey dokey. Thanks, Tammy, for bringing that up. So we've got Christine Vinick, who is, I understand, a new community board member, is that right?
Yes, Christine is one of our new appointees for 2025 to 2027. And all new appointees are getting to hang wherever they'd like.
Welcome, Christine. Ask your question. Thank you for coming.
Christine, you should be able to unmute yourself.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for this. And thank you for that warm welcome. I'm excited to be on the board. So I have a quick question. It's where you were talking a little bit as you're moving up north and everyone's talking about the noise. I'm wondering, we've had some significant, I live down by Wagner, and we've had significant air quality issues, particularly in the summer. And right now it seems to be an issue, another climate issue that we're dealing with, which is high winds. And so on a day like today, the dirt that you have over there that I understand is for planting and just from construction is blowing everywhere. Specifically over in, where the Ritz-Carlton was, right? And Millennium, right? You can really see it, and I've been measuring it. I have devices, and I noted that you have been measuring the air quality. So in the areas that you're going to be up north, can you talk a little bit about how you're going to mitigate this with the children and the playgrounds and the dust that's going to come up?
Yes, we will be having a very thorough air monitoring program, which will be published weekly, I believe, if not monthly. Monthly.
Like that for sure.
And you're right, on a very windy day like today, we have to do certain activities differently. A lot of dust suppression and dirt suppression methods include watering the soil so it doesn't blow up and form a dust cloud. But a lot of the details of that are captured in the FEIS, which should be available shortly, if not now.
Okay, great. But I do want to point out that that was not done today. That there was dust everywhere and dirt everywhere. So there's that.
Apologies for that.
Okay.
That's a great point. Yeah. Thanks, Christine. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Rosa.
Rosa Chang. Hi.
Thank you. Hi. I'm so excited to see all this work getting done. A couple of requests. Number one is for the tabling dates that you mentioned at the Battery. I was wondering if you could share that information on Instagram as well, because that's an easy way for us as a group at Gotham Park to be able to share that information to, a lot of people that would be interested. We don't do mailings as often, so that's sort of, and then it's easy also to frankly post a reminder and sort of say, hey, it's today, so go show up. And so
Yeah, we
I
can do
would
that,
request
Rosa.
that. Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, we can create basically Instagram collateral that's just easy to repost.
Okay, and if you want to
and I
just
appreciate it.
at Gotham Park NYC, then we'll get tagged because there's like 5 of us that do it.
Great.
So we'll know to repost specifically if
Great.
I'm not keeping an eye out for it, and that would be
Okay.
awesome. Then the other thing is for the Battery Park City Authority, you're talking about trees and maybe getting rid of some trees. And I'm just gonna stick my hand up and say, we'd like your trees, if it's at all possible to get your trees and to rehouse them. I know that for the Battery, when the resiliency work started, and granted those were a lot smaller, but we did actually dig out and take trees from, or not trees, but bushes and things from the Battery and rehome them at Gotham Park. And they've actually survived and they're thriving right now. And so we'd be really excited at the opportunity to keep the trees in the neighborhood, so to speak, if that is at all a possibility.
It's a great suggestion. That's next board down, Rosa. Hello. We had some up in the south. We were doing the work on Wagner on relocating some of the bushes and shrubbery in some places, salvaging it in some cases. So noted. I want to make sure this is an art science that the Board of Culture was doing to make sure that these plants, if they're transplanted, can take. But we'll pass it along for sure. We'd love to find the plants a home. We can.
Oh, that would be amazing. We would really, really super duper appreciate that. Because since we're not a Parks Department park, we actually have to buy our own greenery. So that would be awesome as well. Are we gonna have a separate talk about FiDi Seaport, or can I just go at it right now?
No, separate.
Okay, but today.
No,
today.
not today. It's not on the agenda for today, Rosa. Sorry. If you can wait till the end on that, till we're done with all the questions about what's being presented, we can certainly leave that for Alexis and Jordan to take back at the end.
They have one other piece. They're going to.
Okay, I'll wait then. I'll wait. I'll put my hand down. Thank you.
The third part of tonight is the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery. I think that's why you're hanging out. It probably should have been clear. But yeah, so we will hear about the Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coast Resilience. I think it'll be very short. And again, I'm sorry that didn't come from before. Anything else on the Battery Park City plans, in terms of their tie-in or other questions or comments? I mean, I have one, which is, how much of the community boards, I mean, it's a tough question, but let me ask this differently. Were any of the community boards asked for the FEIS incorporated into the FEIS? And could you give a couple of examples while we're all here together?
I'm not close enough to the document, haven't read through the whole thing. I know that as part of the FEIS, every public comment that was received is recorded and an answer is provided. But without being an expert in it, I didn't want to go further. But I will know for the group, I've had this comment for a couple of months. We plan to be back, as we had for a while, back to the community board in June to read the FEIS and answer questions from the public on any questions you have.
Right.
However you guys decide to do that, my guess would be jointly, but I don't want to speak how the community board plans its meetings. But Jeff and Alice, Wendy, Tammy, Eric, Justine, however it makes most sense to you, we're happy to do it. We want to make sure the public has the chance to understand kind of some of our top lines and have their questions answered.
So maybe just that's
Yeah.
great. Curious about the design, just a couple of things. Did you know, was anything done in terms of the amount of space that was needed between a wall and a tree? Did that get at all?
So I understand, early on in the process, we talked about the 15-foot requirement. It's really more about the stability of the wall itself. Our primary focus is having a structural, stable flood barrier system. And trees can threaten that in two ways. One is the roots, one is being able to fall over and potentially damage it.
So that sounds like a.
So it's not a no. There's different levels of plantings you can do as you get further from the wall. And we've been working with our horticulture and landscaping team to find creative ways to hide the wall in landscaping. So there's not gonna be 15 feet of nothing and then we start planting.
No, but the distance was not reduced. And then there was some call for reduction so that certain trees that wouldn't have to have been removed had there been this reduction. And it sounds like that didn't pass.
Correct, yeah.
That's what's helpful. And then just another big one, I know that the Hudson River Park Trust is very interested in terms of the outflow for the sewage into the estuary at just north of Pier 25. Was there any change in where that outflow is going or?
So it is still in the same place. It will be treated, my understanding by the pump station before it goes out. But I would have to get back to you about details.
So we have a meeting tomorrow of the Hudson River Park Advisory Council. I'm gonna share as soon as I receive, at the start of the meeting, I didn't have it. I think I might have it by the end of the meeting, the FEIS, which I'll share with them, but they will request the Battery Park City Authority with DEC to come and speak about this. There are meetings in June and September.
Okay, we do have it, and I think we did it the past couple of years.
Did you just
Yeah,
send it?
I did it the past couple of years, so if you want to send us the date when it is, I will see if we can get to folks. I think we last came in 23 out of 24.
Yeah.
Around this time of year, so.
Okay.
Let me just see, make sure we get the right folks on that schedule.
I'll give you the 2 days.
7 days.
Just a couple of other big picture questions. How much is the whole resiliency project cost?
Northwest.
Both projects or
Well, you could divide it up, south and northwest.
So south is 296 million. And unless something crazy goes on in contingency, we'll be comfortably below that. Northwest, we are delivering the project as progressive design build. So we're still negotiating. Bids are actually currently coming in. And so we're currently figuring out the costs for that. I can't speak to specifics in the Northwest.
Estimate range?
In excess of the building.
Yeah.
And timing, is there? I noticed there was a slide just talking about community improvements in the fall. Is that the assumption that things, I know you have the timing up, I don't pay enough attention, but
Yeah.
what's the next moment?
So construction in earnest is going to start at the end of the year. We're aiming for November, December. And then, the goal is to start with the most vulnerable areas. So connection to the South Project, right at the north of Stuyvesant, and the North Cove work will take the longest, so we're gonna start there as well. Those will be the first under significant construction.
And then in terms of what the state is doing on 9A and looking at, improvements, is that affecting your work at all?
Are you speaking to the Army Corps
Yeah,
project?
well, no, actually, that would be good to speak to that, but I know that there was some delay. There's an interest, obviously the state is now involved in looking at 9A because you're crossing it. So
Right.
as a result, there was a group that was formed to look at.
Oh, you're talking about
9A.
the DOT 9A study?
That's right, that's.
I believe I've seen Tammy at those meetings, actually.
Depends on it.
It's a very interesting project. Obviously, we're very involved and interested in improving 9A because it bifurcates us from the rest of the city. So we're really interested in some improvements along that. It is not a very fast-moving project, as you might imagine, because it's being handled by DOT, but we are watching it very closely. No shade to DOT, but we're very heavily involved.
That's good to hear. Great, yeah, it's something that I think.
And it will incorporate some resiliency work that'll dovetail with ours.
But also looking potentially further north than you or just crossing there.
The entire stretch, we've looked at resiliency, but only at a very high level at this point.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
But that's, obviously, we would love that. It's a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Christine, do you still have a question? Is your hand back up?
Can we go back and just?
Sorry, no, it's not. Let me do that. Sorry. Thank you.
It's okay.
It flashed by again, and I was like, I'm
There we go.
hoping.
You want to see the rendering or the
No,
picture?
no, I want to see the actual,
You get a great view.
that, I was like,
So
is
here,
it
we're on.
gonna be polished up a little bit or something? I mean,
Yes, it has not been cleaned and finished, the exterior surface yet.
And was it, so Warren Price and the Battery gave a lot of feedback on the wall because they were, we won't go back over it. Have their requests been met, which was to have the wall be a living wall on the park side or the street side, not just a cement block?
A living room.
Ideas of engraving it or having pictures on it or,
Artwork
or
on it.
artwork or
Yes.
history of the city.
A lot of those details have yet to be finalized, but we have thought about places where there could be some art, some areas for murals, for example. And throughout the stretch, it's not going to be just a concrete wall. We're going to incorporate some form liner texture and patterns.
And there was no way to have it be green. So,
So any planted, you mean? Anything like that would potentially damage the infrastructure and make it less structurally sound. So we couldn't go forward with that, fortunately.
How long are these walls gonna last?
green wall
What's the
here.
consideration like that? I always been confused by that also. Like,
You know, at a high level, I've heard 50 years,
50
be thrown about.
So it's the store, the next
It's
door.
one of the first projects of its kind, so I think we'll see.
and
But
who's,
we're hoping at least 50 years.
and who's maintaining the structures that go through the Battery?
That go through the battery.
So for all the resiliency work,
Mhm.
Battery Park City Authority has a
Mhm.
contract with EDC to manage Pier A and the plaza outside Pier A. But everything from Pier A to the Battery is not Battery Park City Authority land or purview. So who is maintaining that once it's built? And there's no flip-up gates in that area, so that's not a concern. The flip-ups are only through the sides of Pier A Plaza. But who's maintaining, is that Parks Department from the edge of Pier A Plaza to the Battery?
It's a good question.
My understanding is what we build, we maintain.
I believe that's the case. Yeah, I would have to check.
And ACAD is essential to the flood protection system.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that would be true for the Tribeca portion as well.
Anything.
So is that,
Yes.
Yes,
my
and then
understanding.
we improve the stuff, that parts of the Northwest project outside Battery Park City as well. But again,
and
things that are, I'm sorry, deployable in nature, obviously, none of this stuff is just, it's done in isolation. So if it's part of a citywide emergency plan, like, hey, the city is getting ready for, God forbid, this is all part of, and parcel in the direction of the mayor of the city about when the plan gets instituted, what happens when there's any number of players involved, not just the so all walls deployed, but how it gets deployed in concert with other parts of the system to, make sure that the protection's in place and with any second or third order effects from putting an order in place. So it's all important for you.
And the landscaping and the pipelines.
Let me confirm that.
On the deployables, so where it crosses 9A, the authority is going to deploy those? Or, I mean, obviously you have to coordinate with somebody, but it's the authority that will be.
I think that is still probably TBD, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we haven't worked out all the details for that yet. We'll have to work with other agencies for certain items, like, for example, DEP will own and operate all the tide gates. And they'll be in charge of operating those.
So between the security wall that's there and
Yes.
the ramp that goes up,
Yes,
assuming that, is there planting in between that?
I believe so. I think this is gonna be landscaped between those walls.
And then in front of the building, is there gonna be a sign that tells people that you have to go to the extremes to get into the building?
There's a sign. I'm actually working on the signage currently. We're about to.
Because there's
install.
no scramble, there's no elevator that we wanted, there's no staircase. Everything goes to the extremes, and it's very illogical if you're taking a cab there. Everyone's gonna stop the cab right in front of the building, and they're gonna say, how do I get into the building? And then when they find out how far it is on either side, they're going to say why.
Yes, there is.
That's going to be as upset as we were when we went through the design.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is signage all along Battery Place, so hopefully that would work.
I almost think there should be neon lights in here, something that really makes it stand out that you come in on these extremes, because everyone is going to be looking in front of the building.
Well, particularly from the taxi cab drop-off perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's
Yeah.
something that DOT can do to demarcate where people should be dropping off.
Or maybe
Want
it's
something
designed
that says,
to
"Don't stop here."
design that rectifies what should have been, made clear a long time ago. But it's like part of the game to work in the south landscape, because it's not living with the
In
sun.
my mind's eye, along Battery Place will not be viewed as a destination. I think most people will get out in front of the city or in front of Fieri Plaza. It'll be a pedestrian destination, but not by car, really. The car access to the pavilion will be mostly for back of house operations.
I quickly wanted to address the green wall question that Tammy had a few minutes ago. Because you can put a screen in front of a green wall that's a little bit separated from it, and it looks like a green wall, and the vines can grow up that, and you can pick vines that are climbers and twiners, but that aren't, like hungry to suck into the concrete or the mortar. So there, if we did want to have a green facade or screen in front of that wall, there's a way to do it, and landscape architects do that all the time.
Exactly.
Is that something you've considered, or you must have considered it, but.
Frankly, on the Northwest project, the form ladder was the goal, was to be the front face of the project. So I don't think that any investigation into planting the wall got very far.
They're talking about, I think, the wall along the Battery.
So
South property.
Right.
along the Battery itself, will be mostly.
That's what Tammy was talking about, because she was mentioning Worry Price.
So that'll be landscaped heavily,
Right.
the portion along the Battery.
So at the point of the edge of Pier A Plaza,
Yes,
right, that
Yes.
wall is still fairly tall.
yes.
And that is what we heard a lot of conversation about with Worry Price and the Battery Conservancy. And Laura knows them well, and I sit on the board, and there was lots of conversation about it, because they actually were not in the initial planning process of it. They were definitely in the response loop. But to go with the goals, mandates, and provisions that the Battery Conservancy operates under, they are not really fabulously into just a pretty stone wall. They are very much into nature, aesthetics, design, as green as possible.
This is one where the infrastructure, they have to put the wall.
Right, they have to put a wall, but the question becomes, how does that
Just trying
wall,
to visualize what we're talking
how
about.
does that wall fit into the battery? It is not a Battery Park City land. It's not part of the Battery Park City. It shouldn't match Wagner because it's not Wagner Park. It's the battery. And how does this project work with the battery to ensure that the native plantings that the battery needs, if the battery is going to be taking care of the landscape, if the battery is going to be managing that space, what is that look like? And how is that functional? And how can it be in line with, as Laura's saying, the green, which is what the battery is about. That's not what
I understand.
the design elements for Wagner were considerate on the street side necessarily, but it needs to be.
I understand better now what you're talking about. The design process was a bit before my time at Battery Park City Authority. But my understanding is that we worked pretty closely with PDC, which those slides were from. And I think that guided the decision to go with the stone flattening.
I get it, the wall's huge. I mean, I have pictures that the community has sent me from their apartment buildings looking over, and it's an intense, immense wall.
Yeah.
And walling in parks was very much not what the city used to be about.
All right, I think we'll carry on with this conversation in June when you come back to talk about the FEIS, where a lot of this come up. I would advise the public that's here tonight and online and elsewhere to absolutely, if they're interested in looking at images of all this, to look under the Public Design Commission, March 2025, March 28th, 2025 document, which you'll see 191 pages of everything that's in the Northwest plans. And you can also listen to their YouTubes if you want to hear the commissioner's comments. It's usually a fantastic way to get very close and understanding what this is all about. I know this community board had asked for a heads up on that. We obviously didn't receive it. I'm personally disappointed. I think our chair is as well, but alas, that's where we're at. So anyway, we will catch up and we'll look forward to reading the FEIS, which is out today, also a public document, which you can get, I assume, online, right? As of now, right now. I'm sure that's 1,000 pages, as I recall, or some such thing.
Many thousands.
Many thousands, oh, even better. So there you go.
But there is an executive summary.
So thank you for that. And we'll come back to that. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
We're very excited to walk through it at the end of July.
Yes.
And, as soon as we know
Oh, wow.
more,
Yeah.
we'll share more publicly.
We'll go arm in arm. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. We'll look forward to seeing you soon again. And so Jordan, take it away to finish it up here. Oh,
Ethan is here.
Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery, right?
Yep.
Hi, yes.
And I
Can
think
you guys hear me?
that's what Rosa is still here.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi there, yes.
Alrighty. Hi. My name is Ethan Kraft. I am with the PMCM for Brooklyn Bridge Montgomery Coastal Resilience. I'm joined here tonight by colleagues from the PMCM as well as the Department of Design and Construction. So if we could just scroll to that next slide. So this is a map of our project area. I'm sorry, if we could go to page 48.
Maybe just hold on, just give me 1 sec. Sorry, give me 1 sec, I'm with you.
Take your time.
This is 49 for BMCR.
Yeah, 48.
And 48, there you go.
Yes,
You are all set.
thank you. So this is a map of our project area spanning from the Brooklyn Bridge to Montgomery Street. We've got a lot of different things going on, a lot of underground utility work. Some of the sort of big highlights. Location 1, we have a lot of progress on the Interceptor Gate building. I have some photos and renderings of that in a couple of slides. We're also doing trunk water main installation throughout. And then under the FDR, we have the installation of our flip up gates, as well as their, foundation work. So we can go ahead to page 49. So just looking at the project timeline, we are on schedule for the end of 2026. The distribution water main work was completed earlier this year. Those are those smaller branches off of the large trunk water main. The distribution water main serves households. Trunk water main is sort of like the highway where all the water comes. That work started earlier this year under the FDR, and we are in South Street now. We're also coordinating with Con Ed on some of the final utility work. And then sort of throughout the rest of the project, we have work on the interceptor gate chamber, and then our flood walls and floodgates. So we can go on to page 50, please. So here are some photos of those flip-up gates. We have 9 of the total 24 flip-up gates installed so far. We have more than half of the micro piles, which serve as the foundations for those floodgates, in place. And then we've got about 500 linear feet of the total 1,800 linear feet that will be installed. That's just the concrete stationary flood walls. So I have these photos here. I think that the next slide is the video that we were emailing back and forth about, if you're able to show it.
I can. If this does not click, I gotcha on the other one. So give me a sec here.
Sure, thank you. It's about 27 seconds, the video.
I'm gonna stop here. I'm going to share screen on the other one and make it work, ideally. She says.
The video that we're going to see is a sped up demonstration of the flip up gates. So you'll see a clock in the top left-hand corner that counts by seconds on the far right, and then minutes will be the middle number.
With an ideal, maybe I can do it, maybe I can't. If not, I got it somewhere else. So give me 1 sec.
Of course. Thank you for accommodating.
Ethan, while you're waiting for this, can you just talk about how long it takes to get those gates up? Who comes to put them up? How do they get maintained and fixed if they break? A little bit of that.
Yes. So the gates are delivered to our site. When we refer to gates, we are actually referring to about 3 individual segments. Those are delivered to the site due to capacity constraints under the FDR. We can only take so many at a time. So those are solidly in production. We're taking them as we can. Once they are installed and ready to go, they will be push button deployed. So someone will push a button and they are hydraulic arms that will lift the gates. That will be the Department of Environmental Protection. We'll be operating those. I think that those were all of the questions.
And there are backup, there's power outage, there are other ways that we don't rely entirely on the push buttons.
Thank you. They can be manually deployed as well.
Are they at the gate, or is it
Oh,
like?
Give me a second and I'll try and get the video up.
We'll have all that answered.
Exactly.
That's cool that it's.
1 second, working on it.
But yes.
And those also have a 50-year lifespan, those gates?
I'll have to get back to you on that, but I think it should be around 50 years. I'll check.
Hey, Ethan, do you have the video up on your side? I can allow you to share screen.
I do have it.
All right, so I think because it's asking me to sign in as you, which I don't think is a smart choice. So let me just give you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Let me
thank you,
just
guys.
give you presenter.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
See you.
Bye, Nick.
Okay, go for it.
Alrighty, let's try this. Can you guys see this?
Yes, we can.
Alrighty, so again, I believe, yeah, so the far left number is minutes. You can see the gates going up. And the left side of your screen is the water side. So this is the side that will be flooded.
Wait a minute, it's only a minute and 27, whatever on what the question is.
So they deploy in just under 3 minutes. And then of course they'll
No, the left.
back down in a similar length.
The water's on the left?
Yeah, surprisingly, I would have thought otherwise.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, so the water would be on this side, and then where these guys are standing over here, that's the city side.
Water in where the mechanics are.
Because they don't want the water pushing the gate down.
Yes.
But you could push the other way.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense because as the water comes in, it reinforces the fact that the gate is up versus pushing it down.
You can see the power, we just.
Wow,
put it right
that's
on.
really cool. That's the first time
Where's
we've seen.
the button? Where's the
That-
button?
Isn't that the first time we've seen?
It's
Yeah,
like
first
the
time.
Wizard of
30
Oz
years.
behind
That's
some
really cool.
Yeah.
DEP's office.
Yeah, they're very cool. And they are, one other sort of fact is they're built to withstand impact. So if a boat comes unmoored during a storm, they can withstand that kind of impact as well. So one single segment can be hit by a
Can
boat.
you show
and
it one
fail.
more time?
Can you run it from the start again once more?
Sure, of course.
And where is the button?
I believe that this rebar that you can kind of see in the background will house those types of controls. So the controls will be located
down there.
every so feet.
So during an emergency, a human has to go to each deployable and push the button.
Correct.
Yes, they are all linked. I don't know how many deploy at a single time.
Many hours, potentially days ahead of it.
Yeah, this is.
We're talking about, you know,
Okay.
EM starts seeing the storm 6 or 7 days out. There's kind of meetings every day.
Well, there you
Eventually, the kind of deputy mayor and
Mike,
mayor makes a decision. We're talking like 48 hours, potentially 72 hours in advance. People are out there in the, 2 or 3 days before.
You've got to be pretty excited about this, Jordan. I mean, this is like real.
I'm super, like,
Yeah.
we've been.
These are great.
Yeah,
I mean, this is probably, you've seen it a million times, but for this is the first time we've seen them.
absolutely. I was at one of the
Some people,
demonstrations.
there were tourists.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
I was
no, I
like-
mean, no, there were very few of them, but you imagine you've seen it in person. I couldn't go, but yeah, people were.
I'm sure we can
Yeah,
arrange.
Catherine, did you see that lovely video?
That should be on the nightly news.
How much does one of these cost?
That is a great question. I'm not sure.
A ballpark? Jordan, you know. What?
We can find out.
Yeah, we can get back to you.
Well, what do you know?
I know that this is this project has come in, there was moments where this was a $400+ million project. It is $350 million and it's staying on budget. So big picture, we are. yeah.
Congratulations.
But is most of it in these gates?
It's a 0.8 of a mile project overall. And certainly more than half is these flip-up gates. I think it's closer to 3/4.
Oh, really?
And where are they made?
Ethan, would you like me to would you mind
Sure.
stopping and go back to your presentation?
Yeah.
Very awesome.
Absolutely.
Ethan,
That'd be
I'm
great.
not sure if you heard the question of where the gates.
They're manufactured in Texas.
Of course.
So you got it, America.
Okay, here you are for
Okay.
the intersection photos.
Alrighty, thank you. So moving right along, this on the left, you can see some of the groundwork of the interceptor gate building, which will house the controls for the large interceptor gate chamber. So that's on Robert F. Wagner Senior Place. And then those renderings on the right just show what it will look like in its final design. The top photo is the perspective from South Street. And then the bottom photo is sort of an aerial, I guess, from Smith Houses looking towards Robert F. Wagner Senior Place and South Street. We can go to the next page.
All right, moving along.
And then these are just some photos of the trunk water main work. I think these photos are very helpful to get an idea of how difficult and how constrained we are on space under the FDR. You can see there's not a whole lot of room down there. The left is that trunk water main getting installed. And then the far right photo is under the FDR, but I believe that those materials are for the trunk water main in South Street, which I have photos of on the next slide, if you could scroll to that.
So trunk water main coming down from the FDR or trunk water main
In South Street.
it's
In the street.
Yeah.
okay, so it's
There's some in the street and some under the FDR.
so this is fresh water or this is sewage
Yes, this is water that's serving as drinking water and things like
drinking
that.
water. Okay, thank you.
And I know there were several issues with this water main prior to, it wasn't necessarily part of the initial project, although there were some areas where we were conflicting, but I remember 2017, 2018, 2019, there were issues where flooded out because of burst. So need to do here.
And then these photos that you see here are the same work, but this is the work that's actually in South Street, not under the FDR. So you can move along. The next slide, please. So this is some exciting news. We put forward a call for art late last year, inviting students and local artists to contribute work that we would put on construction fencing mesh. We're moving along with that. The mesh is being manufactured now, and we will have a celebration for our artists on Tuesday, June 10th from 4 to 5 p.m. The Two Bridges Tower Resident Association and Two Bridges Neighborhood Council were very helpful in getting us a space for this event, and we're very excited. We got a lot of really great art from a lot of students and then some local artists as well. So we're excited to install those and celebrate those artists, and we will post all of the art to our website as well, so folks who aren't on site can still take a look at them. You can move to the next slide,
Agency is running the art call for art? What agency runs the call for art program and makes the judgment and,
This was just our community engagement team for the project, so DDC. We were fortunate that pretty much every piece of art that was submitted was approved and accepted, so no one was turned away from this call for art. And we did a lot of outreach to different buildings and to the schools that are in our area.
so this was DDC that sort of launched it?
Yes.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you. So for our what we've heard slide, we got some feedback about signage in our area. So we've been increasing signage with some what's going on here signs, which are sort of meant to be plain language descriptions of what's going on behind the construction fencing. We're also working to make some improvements to our map that's in our weekly bulletin. And it's the same map that was earlier in these slides, just to make it a little bit clearer about where people can access the Esplanade. And then we've started posting our timeline to the website as well. We also received an inquiry from a community member about just similar to what we were discussing earlier in this meeting, the dust around our site. So we have addressed some of that. All of our debris and excavated material are removed daily or covered in the rare instances where they remain overnight. We also cover all of the clean fill that is brought into the site at the end of the workday. One of the benefits of working with such little space under the FDR is that we really do have to get rid of that debris and excavated material as quickly as possible because there's just no place to store it. And we've reminded the truck drivers to cover those loads, whether it's clean or debris, to cover their loads as they're traveling in and out of the site. We're also increasing our wet street sweeper vacuum and the manual watering, the frequency of both of those activities. Okay, if we could move on to the next slide. So these are just resources. Our community construction liaison, Marcia, is on the call. This is her contact information. She's highly responsive, so please contact her whenever you would like. We regularly present to Community Board 3 Parks meetings. We'll be presenting there again in June. And then you can always reach out to us with our inquiry tool and email updates. And I also just want to give a quick plug to our BMCR to Your School program. This is a DDC program that we operate that ties in BMCR and East Side Coastal Resiliency to sort of bring lessons about climate change and about these resiliency efforts into the classroom. So we'll go to classrooms of all ages, whether they are in the Two Bridges neighborhood or anywhere in the city. And we have a presentation and some interactive activities where they can learn more about the project. And we've got a lot of interest in that this year, so it's been very exciting. And if you guys know of any schools that might be interested, please reach out to Marcia, and we'd be happy to talk with them. With that, I can take any questions.
Oh, thanks. That's such a fabulous idea. Is there a way that we get that going on in our end of the island? Like PS 234, PS 150, 278 for information about these incredible plans for the battery and battery parks? I mean, I'm looking at you, Jordan. I mean, how do we?
Talk to Diana, and I know that it's always been the intent is to take this complicated stuff that, you know, is important, but is fundamentally foreign and new and dramatic and.
I just wanted to say I've actually introduced them to the EDC team to PS 150 and to PS 234, I believe, and to Spruce Street.
Way to go, Rosa.
To this group, but not.
No, well, specifically to
Fide.
EDC.
Yeah, it was Fide Seaport, and thank you, Rosa. That has already been an amazing introduction. We met the
Awesome.
principal, where it's great. So the answer is yes, there is definitely opportunity to extend some of this teaching learning to the schools in the south part of LMCR.
That's great. Thank you all. That's fabulous. Okay, great. Good way to end.
I have one more question.
One question.
What updates do we hear about money from the federal government and projects and, but I know we're not talking about all of this right now, but that's the big pressing issue in my mind.
Great question. I guess those online, maybe those that weren't here last time, the question is about the FEMA BRIC program, is building resilient infrastructure in communities. In the LMCR area, we were awarded $50 million, roughly 8 for design and 42 for construction. And the update, it's not a dramatic one, is there have been a couple memos, which there's been significant reporting on, more or less declaring this money canceled or the program overall canceled and the money at risk. I think that our assessment of those memos is that the construction portion, the 42, is likely what they are going to target. But to be very clear, and this is, I think, you know, where potential action might follow, is we have not received cancellation notices kind of explaining the rationale, nor exactly what projects are being targeted. We've not received kind of an individual level. We just kind of have their intent, and one was an internal memo and one was a memo that was shared with the Department of Homeland Security. We have not received direct communication. And so any legal action, any next steps, any pausing of the projects would have to be assessed after we're told which projects are actually at risk. And so it's a bit of, we are waiting to see what FEMA is actually planning to do here. Until then, you know, we're doing as much as we can. A lot of department reviewing what we know. Once again, there's no, this project is canceled for X reason, and that's the point where we can begin to
So
react.
the 8 million for design, did you have that and they clawed it back, or you
So
never had it?
We all these grants are reimbursable. So I think that's.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you spend the money and then you hope they reimburse.
Correct.
And at what point in time would that reimbursement request normally go out? So we'll know yes or no whether you're getting the money, kind of thing.
It usually is like monthly, you know, as the project proceeds. And so if you've seen in the reporting, you know, as they talked about the Seaport, they mentioned the 42. We don't know. We don't know whether they're trying to target the 42 and the 8, but based on our reading of their internal memo, we assumed it is mainly, it basically is the 42 and the 8 is TBD. So it could also be at risk.
So if you spend the 8 million, then, and, you know, so do you plan on spending the 8 million?
We are advancing.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, thank you. I'll stop there. Thank you. And we cheer you on.
Can you clarify again, if anybody's been secured for the 5I Seaport 15 segment to continue the study in this cycle of the budget?
So this is also an important issue and worth distinction. So the question is about the money needed to advance the 5I Seaport. We have a long-term plan, similar, overlapping geographies, but this is, the project that expands the shoreline, not the kind of nearer term seaport project. And EDC has made a request for $15 million as part of the city's budgeting process. It was not included in the executive budget that was released May 1st. That doesn't mean the process is over. There is an active budget which occurs additionally in June. And so there are ongoing conversations, but to be clear, that money was not in the executive budget. And so once again, there are conversations for, advancing on it, but it's not in.
So that's big.
And are there city council champions for this, or is the city
And
council?
Budget, because state's been really quiet. It's not, where is the money from the state?
Yeah, but this was contemplated to be city money.
Traditionally, the city has supported EDC's work for the design.
So this
To
is
this
the
point.
mayor or who?
Yeah, it's gotta be the mayor. But my question was, is the city council, including our council person, supportive of this being included in the?
Yes.
He is? Has he said so?
He has said so to us, guys. Because we had this discussion and his team was in the room over the last few EPC meetings. And it has been a large discussion when the city budget came out and trying to find also Deborah Glick's office, who said that they were looking for money from a state perspective to be supportive because she's head of resiliency environment. So absolutely for our city elected, he affirmed that to the community board. And at the full board meeting, Deborah Glick's representative Tracy said something as well. So the question that we have back to EDC on this is how can we be most helpful for advocacy, both city and state, to ensure it gets done?
Yeah, Alexis, that's directed to EDC. I'll gladly skip answers.
Is this different than what?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we understand that we have support. I think, the issue is that we are not yet in a budget. And so the work is going to stop until we have an actual line item in a budget. We do not want to stop. So there's been some misunderstanding that somehow this has to do with federal funding or the Trump administration or whatever, but this is actually 100% within the control of the city and or state to fund the project.
Rosa left. Question, it looks like. Rosa, are you still with us?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I was having trouble with the button. So I was curious, a couple of things. Number one is, so do we basically, because I'm freaked out actually, frankly, about the $15 million, because I think we absolutely have to have the funding in place at least until, so that we can be shovel ready by the time, the federal government hopefully changes over and we can actually get federal infrastructural dollars for the $7 to $8 billion plan to construct 5I Seaport. So what can we do more concretely, specifically in pressing? Is it a resolution in support to request that funding? Is it a request specifically to our city council member, to our,
We wrote,
like, all?
we had a whole resolution on this, just to everyone in the.
We did a
public.
resolution.
Yeah, we did a
But
resolution.
15 million specifically was a request and that went out?
Yes, I think it was, and it did go out, yes.
Okay, awesome. And then, and to our state people as well?
Yes,
Okay, is there anything else we can do?
that's a great question. And that's, the next major rainstorm, having them all come and stand where it's ponding and flooding and taking pictures and getting on social media might be our best thing. You and I can, tie ourselves to a bench and pretend that we're gonna get full.
Go to
Well,
the,
then-
go to the debates, which I know you do, and ask this very
Yeah.
question in front of the mayor.
I do.
I know you do, and so do I, but that's what you, to me, that's one of the most effective things, because people hear it.
Right.
So, anyway.
Okay, I would just want to be sure that we're at least shovel ready by the time, we're capable to accept funds. And so then, Alexis, I was curious, I mean, the funding that you have in place, how long does that carry you for? Like, when do you guys stop designing because you've run out of money?
So our current contract is set to wrap up. Basically, this phase of work with Arcadis is set to wrap up this fall. We can extend the contract for a year if we had additional funding. But we're basically wrapping up all of the scope that was contemplated and funded as this part of work by the end of this year. And without
Wow.
fiscal year 26 money, we won't continue.
Okay.
Less happy note to end on.
So, but you know what, the note to end on for everyone that's involved and everyone who is here in this room and anybody online is, whenever you meet a candidate, no matter what their race they're running for, this should be one of the top questions. It's not a lot of money we're looking for to continue the efforts. I mean, if you think about it, just looking at the numbers of what we've talked about tonight, 350 million BMCR on budget, successful. Northwest is more than $1 billion, don't go in there. The South was 296 million on budget and working. We really need to ensure that monies are available, monies are spent, and monies are planned. So early and often to everybody you see.
Alexa and.
Thank you, George.
What is the phrase he was used to describe it? It's design money
It is for the environmental review.
for the
For
environmental
For
review.
Clyde Seaport Master Plan.
Yes.
All right, I think. Well, thank you, Jordan and Alexa and everybody else online who stuck it out there, and Ethan. And I think we are adjourning this meeting, and thank you all for your time, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.